Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Scenic View podcast. This is Jonathan Owens, along with Artis Watkins, Suzanne Beasley, and Samantha Klein. We have an awesome interview scheduled for later in the episode with State Human Resources Director Staci Meyer. But first, we want to just kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in the news and maybe some other topics. The only real news item I have is the ongoing Wake Med fiasco, Wake Med and Atrium merger. And Artis, you spoke at the Wake County Commissioners meeting on Monday. We posted that to our Facebook if you would like to go watch it. It was an awesome speech from Artis. She really let them have it. So
John enjoys that, doesn't he?
yeah, it's awesome. I love it when she gets angry, Artis, except when it's at me. So
spicy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Look, okay, so just to step back for a minute, just explain why I was angry. Wake Med and Atrium, a hospital here in Wake County in Raleigh, and a hospital system that's national, but Charlotte's the biggest North Carolina presence of Atrium, announced on a Friday afternoon, late, yeah, we're merging, and Wake County Board of Commissioners will be voting on it Monday. This, again, was on a Friday afternoon a few months ago.
This was in, I think May, was it?
Yeah, in May. And so there was no public notice. This attempt to sneak it through, turns out they'd been talking to each other, according to them, for 2 years, Wake Med and Atrium, about doing this. The county, the taxpayers built Wake Med in the first place. So the taxpayers paid for the hospital. In 1997, the taxpayers made an agreement with the hospital where it would be a nonprofit, independent entity. However, Wake County Board of Commissioners would control enough seats on the board of Wake Med to make it clear that they could make sure that taxpayer investment was protected in so much that they could make sure Wake Med didn't just go off the rails and put the community first. So fast forward to today, Wake Med and Atrium just wanted the Board of Commissioners to just, county commissioners in Wake County, to rubber stamp it and let them do their own thing. We know every time hospitals consolidate, prices go up. The health plan specifically said for any state employee, no matter where they live in North Carolina, they don't have to live here for it to affect them, that the health plan would go up to $130 a year more out of each health plan member's pockets if these two hospitals got together. Why is that? Atrium, according to the health plan, charges about 15 to 40% more for procedures than Wake Med.
Yeah.
And so the prices would go up, period. I mean, there's just no way around this. Atrium's not seeking to put a couple $1 billion into something so they can charge less than they like to charge. It's just not believable. If they are wanting to do that, I don't know why they don't make their contract between them and Wake Med public. Instead, what they did, and I'm getting to the angry part.
Yeah.
Instead, Atrium and Wake Med met with Wake County Board of Commissioners, 3 members at a time, because if you meet with 4, it's subject to open meetings laws, and it's considered a public meeting, and you have to be transparent. Instead, they met with no more than 3 of them at a time to show them what would be in the contract. But no one in the public knows. They're just saying, it's going to be great. They won't commit. They will surely hire X number of new people in Wake County. They won't commit. The prices will stay the same or go lower. They won't commit to anything like that. They just say, trust us, it's going to be better. So the main beef that we have is watching our members' costs go up all over the state because a hospital that has $10 billion in reserves and a $26 million a year CEO wants to come take over a hospital here in Raleigh, and we're not going to watch our members' costs go up without a fight, but we're specifically not going to do that when the Wake County Board of Commissioners is choosing to do something so chump as to have secret meetings to keep it from the public record. That's
blatantly in your face sketchy.
So 100 people signed up to comment the other day. And, the vast majority of people who were speaking against this are just members of the Wake County community. There were, ironically, a lot of people who spoke for the 2 hospitals merging, who are, a lot of them get a paycheck from one or the other,
Yeah. And our last episode was with Nathan Foster from the NC Justice Center and Anthony Pope, a community leader here in Southeast Raleigh. And I think it was a really good episode.
It was really interesting.
Yeah. So if you are more interested in this, you want to know more about this issue, then go back and listen to that episode. But yeah, and Monday, you were scheduled to go to the meeting at 2 p.m. to, do your public comments. And I was at Crabtree Mall walking through, and I noticed an ad was already on their screen that was Wake Med and Atrium together forever.
Stronger together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and there's a billboard on Capitol Boulevard to that effect. Stronger together.
And I saw a TV ad yesterday as well. So it doesn't seem like they're really worried about the whole commissioner.
No, there's nothing genuine. They're screaming, we don't really care.
Yeah.
Now, I did briefly speak with Don Gensig, who runs Wake Med and the CEO of Wake Med, prior to the meeting, and invited him on this podcast. So we'll follow up, and told him if he'd like to come and have his say as to how he thinks it could be helpful for state employees and retirees. We are, in fact, still all ears. Yeah. So that invitation is genuine and it stands. And if he would like to come in, we really would genuinely hear from him.
I don't think I had heard, or maybe I just missed it when you were talking about it, but I had not heard the 40% increase number. That is a lot.
Well, remember, we can't get the specific prices we're paying to people, but the health plan did confirm what we pay Atrium in the health plan compared to what we pay Wake Med. We pay Atrium 15 to 40% more depending on what the procedure is.
That's crazy. Is outrageous. So they did not vote this time, but they're expected to vote on it in September, right, at their September meeting?
That's what they said. But, there's a lot of people that think this is just, in the eyes of the hospital, such a done deal. And I can see why they would think that. They got this exclusive audience free from the public eye by the county commissioners, and the public was limited to 2 minutes apiece to say their piece to these county commissioners. There was no time to really give facts to the county commissioners that they need.
And for the record, there was a bidder for Wake Med that was, twice as much?
Yeah, UNC Healthcare bid $5 billion, which is 2.5 times as much.
So obviously we're going to keep watching that. I don't have any other topics offhand. So why don't we just go to the Gen Z moment before we can switch to the interview? And Sammy, you said you had a good one this week, right?
I hope it's a good one. So I found this article from the Stanford Report of a study that was done last semester talking about what Gen Zs think about political polarization. And in a political science course at Stanford, research and a study was done by students that found Gen Z is more optimistic than any other age group about the possibility of bridging the political divide in America.
Oh, do tell.
Says that polarization doesn't seem to be a fixed trend in Gen Z's mind, and one of their students said that our identities and views are still malleable, and that's why this moment matters so much. Now, the professor is also a head of research at a nonpartisan think tank called More in Common, and she has taught this course for the past couple years, and she found that working with students surfaces concerns that standard polling may miss. So the students took time to explore different topics like the political influence of online content promoting masculinity, the religious revival in Gen Z's lives, and their beliefs on the American dream. And they also examined academic literature on polarization and how it affects American politics, how it contributes to political gridlock, drives support for political violence, and erodes trust in American institutions. Now, one student examined the role that social media plays in inflating Gen Z's hostility towards people from opposing political parties. The data she found was a little bit complicated because she found that Gen Zs who use social media daily or almost daily are more likely to dislike the opposing party. However, she also wanted to know whether social media deepens the divide between what Gen Z thinks people from the other side believe versus what they actually think. So the results that she found with that showed that Gen Zs don't hold wildly distorted views about what the other side thinks when they use social media every day. But the familiar narrative is that being online warps your perspective and changes what you think about other people. But she found that Gen Zs kind of believed for the most part, what they believed about the other party was typically what the other party believed about themselves. Now, another student did research that found students who identified as Republican and conservative were more confident that polarization can be reduced than Gen Zs who identified as liberal and Democrats, which tracked with previous studies done by the Pew Research Center that stated a person's view of government depends on whether or not their political party is in charge.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yep. And they also found that Gen Z is more likely to attribute problems to systematic failures in democracy rather than specific leaders or policies.
Yeah, I think there's probably I think maybe that grows out of like pessimism in general, that they don't see
Now, the students who
good
completed
future.
this study do say that they now feel they have a better understanding as to what kind of solutions matter. And they are more optimistic that we can rebuild trust in the system while working to reform it.
I hope they're right.
I hope so too.
And they stated that while we are inheriting a polarized nation, we are also inheriting deep wells of democratic vitality, and we have a high standard for our democracy, but we believe that living up to those standards are within reach, and we hope that other generations will listen and be inspired by Gen Z's visions.
Yeah, let's hope so, because they're not in a good spot right now.
At all.
Yeah.
So,
But that kind of does sound like the American ideal from way back when, even that,
yeah.
that the reason we did so well as a country is we believed in ourselves and our systems. And so now, it's not the first time we've had hiccups in that. I mean, my goodness, this country went through Watergate.
Yeah.
And of course,
Yeah, I think that across the board, no matter what generation, we really need a renewed respect for our institutions and for America and for
Concur.
our promise of America.
I concur.
And there's a lot of pessimism. And I'm on my soapbox now. So. But yeah, good topic there.
Good Gen Z moment.
Insightful.
Thank you.
Well, it was a great interview. Like I said, we recorded it a little earlier, but I think you'll get something out of it. So enjoy. We've talked about the Public Workforce Modernization Act several times lately on the podcast without going too in depth with it. And each time I think we've said, we'll need to have Staci Meyer on to talk about it. And so this week we have our old friend, State Human Resources Director, Staci Meyer, to talk about it. Welcome, Director Meyer.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, great. Well, we know you're very busy person, so we won't waste your time. I'll say that you've been on our podcast several times, so if you want to go back and get the bio for her, just go back to some of those episodes.
She has done everything in different agencies, including running one of the agencies. And now she's running the Office of State Human Resources. And as we've said before on this podcast, there's nobody better to do it because she has seen it all in all of the different agencies. It's got to be helpful to have had to deal with the problems as somebody trying to run an agency. You know what OSHR in your best case scenario would have changed, right?
Yes, I've had just about every job in state government. I started as a clerk. And
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, way, way long ago, more than 36 years ago. So I have seen it from every level. But I think the thing that gives me the most insight is that I'm a state employee.
Yeah.
And I love that. I will tell you, I wouldn't have been here this long if I didn't love it. So I love public service, and either working at many agencies or representing them, gives you a unique insight into how agencies work and what it is to be a state employee and what the needs are in agencies. So I have a unique perspective.
And we've got a whole list of questions for you. We want to definitely get to that. But before we jump into it, I think sometimes there's confusion over what the Office of State Human Resources, what their role is supposed to be. And I know even I fall into that trap sometimes. Some of our members think OSHR is there to advocate for employees, but that's not the job of OSHR. Good things can happen for employees because of things OSHR does, but your job's not to advocate for employees.
Well, I mean, I think Yes and no. I think they're, and part of what you do as a public servant, you always have to advocate. I mean, it does require some of that, but not for individual employees. I mean, our focus is on promulgating policies that help agencies run. And of course, all of those policies impact state employees. So, I mean, we've had conversations many times about what does it look like to totally rewrite a law? And what does it look like to reset how your office works? So, one thing that made me realize that we haven't overhauled our law in 60 years. Well, there have been changes, of course, over time, but looking at policies that impact every person through state employees. State employees provide the work. They do the work that impacts every single person that lives in North Carolina and every visitor.
Mm-hmm.
So when you cross that border, a state employee impacts you. So we are looking at our laws and our policies to really do all that we can to elevate public service. That's our whole goal. So I think there is an advocacy element to that. While we can't go out and advocate for individual employees, we always just have to keep that in mind, that who are we working for and why are we doing this work? So it is human resources. And so, I want to make sure that we focus on the human part. And again, state employees have a tremendous impact on everyone in North Carolina.
So that law specifically is the State Human Resources Act, and this Public Workforce Modernization Act was almost a wholesale rewrite of it, or?
There were some things that stayed the same, but mostly it got updated, it got modernized, but there's also a laundry list of things that it did. And when we were talking about doing the rewrite, one thing I said in the very beginning, and it holds true today to everything we do, we look at this through the lens of what kind of impact does this have on agencies? What kind of impact does this have on state employees? And we all agreed very early on that we were not going to do anything that was a negative impact on state employees. So I feel really good in saying that every single thing in this law that has, been a modernization effort or a change really is a benefit to state employees, because I'm one myself and I know when things are good. And if there is an opportunity to make it better, that was our challenge. Let's make it better.
It was a big challenge, which we can jump into some of the things that happened with the rewrite of the State Human Resources Act. State government has always had the reputation, and well, it's not a reputation, it was fact. It was painfully slow, the hiring process of getting someone interviewed and pushed through, 6 months. So by the time you get to the end of that, you've lost good candidates. They've gotten a job somewhere else. So can you talk a little bit about how the new act would affect being able to hire people in a more timely fashion?
Well, I will tell you, you were with me that day when I had to testify before House Oversight. And I had to say, it takes about 182 days on average. So we're working with a 20% vacancy rate at the time. So we're working with those numbers and having data that really tells you that kind of information. We've been able to stand up Workday, which gives us more information about the hiring process and how long it takes. But I will tell you, we've had an overly burdensome hiring process. We had a 12-page, 96-question application. So the new act, it helps speed up the process by filling vacancies, by eliminating some of the red tape that was there, focusing on what candidates can actually do, not just what degrees they have. We're trying to streamline, the requirements for job postings, get rid of the 12-page, 96-question application. We can now hire from LinkedIn and Indeed. We're looking at every single thing, not just what the law will do for the hiring process, but in our policies, we want to make sure that we are streamlining the experience for everyone. I think the workforce today is very different than it was 60 years ago. People expect an answer in days and not in months. And ultimately, the goal is to get the very best state employees that we can get. and have them be career state employees. So that is a real focus of this, is to make it easier and 3 words, easier, faster, and better in terms of force, not just for employees and job seekers, but for agencies. The HR, our HR systems are really overburdened. Application screening can take a long time. Everything can take a long time. So we've done a lot of things to make it easier. I don't know that we've identified all of them. We're going to continue looking at ways to streamline it. And we can do that through our policies, not another change in the law. The law gives us our framework now, and we know what to work from. But as we look at every single policy we have, we want to change it to make it better, to make it more understandable, to make it more readable, to make it shorter. That is so important. We have a 1,000-page policy manual that we are really working to streamline.
And kind of going in that same train of thought, the pathways to getting into public service for temporary employees, for time-limited employees, those kind of areas too.
We had some significant changes in the law on appointment types, and we're working right now on those policies. But what ultimately, and I said earlier, we want people to grow into state service. We want them to come on, but we want them to see developmental opportunities. We just revised the performance management policy, and it was very discipline-driven. And that, what we want to do is make it a growth kind of experience rather than discipline-oriented. Now, at some point, you have to look if there's not performance, but that's a whole separate policy. But looking at a performance management system, it's really a work management system now. How do you manage the work? And where can employees see growth? So, we want work-based learning programs. We're doing things like apprenticeships now and skills-based learning, so we can bring people in and they can train on the job and get the experience they need and get into a position easier. So we love that aspect. In the last session, we allowed people to be converted from temporaries into a permanent position after 6 months. We shortened that to 3 months. So those kinds of things I think will help address this high vacancy rate that we have, and it will bring more people into the system easier and faster.
And veterans, this act does some special things for veterans. I know we had Secretary Millett in here talking about what she would like to see, about a year ago. And can you tell us what ended up?
Yeah, I will tell you, we're pretty happy. We are right in the middle now of looking at the veterans policy now, our veterans preference policy, and hope that we're going to make additional changes. But the law this time expanded the veterans preferences to spouses of active duty military and active duty service. It hasn't done that in the past.
Yeah, we had a long conversation with her about that.
So I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, it's a huge thing for the state, and you want veterans to want to come to North Carolina.
Yeah, we do. And we find that, treating people as a package. I mean, it's easy for one spouse to get a job, or easier, but when both have a preference, particularly our military veterans, they have a preference, or service members, they may get transferred and they have the job already.
Yeah.
But the spouse has no, it's like they have to start all over again.
And yet they've been providing the public service of keeping.
Right.
Absolutely. So it's, it is incentive, and I hope that it will help many military families. That's the goal. We worked really closely with Secretary Millett. So I think they're excited about these changes, and we're looking to see what more we can do in our policy to make it easier and better for veterans.
Well, the good stuff, pay and flexibility within agencies. There's the ability to give performance-based incentives in, I think, cabinet agencies. Talk a little bit about how that is expanded to all agencies and the amount and, what agency heads can do now.
Well, I think the main thing is that agency heads know their business and their budgets better than anyone. I mean, they now have about 95% delegation authority, and we're trying to make it easier when agencies have money available to them that they can do things like performance bonuses. So we're working on policies now that will help and make that easier, and not just relying on what the legislature does. for example, if there's some flexibility in performance bonuses that an agency has money that's not being used for one resource that could be used for another, we want them to be able to do that if that's possible. We want to look at the possibilities of using leave as a bonus if an agency doesn't have money available. So we're trying to be creative in every way that we can. And, it used to be that in order to get a raise, you had to be promoted to a manager.
Right.
Okay. And so I don't think that is the best way to look at performance in terms of if someone, a lot of people don't want to be managers and they find themselves having to do that kind of thing to advance within their own agency. So we are looking at all kinds of flexibilities for one-time bonuses and leave as a bonus, just contemplating all kinds of things that could be incentives.
So I know when the bill was signed into law by Governor Stein, the top headline that came out of it was the parental leave sections. I know even the News and Observer story was pretty much all about that. And then these other things also happened. So can you tell us a little bit of...
Part of that was that there were about 1,000 babies in the picture.
There were.
So
Can I tell you, there were.
that was a lot of babies.
And when the governor was speaking, it's kind of a funny moment, but the place was packed.
Yeah.
And the governor was speaking, and all of the babies were sort of sequestered in another room. And you were there.
Yeah.
And so right when I stood up to take the podium, all the babies came out.
Oh, yeah.
And there were babies everywhere, and there were, crawl.
And
Everybody
babies
was
aren't big on speechifying.
They don't love speechifying, and they don't, they want to get down and move. And one mom had 2 babies she was holding in her hands, and the governor reached over and said, can I help you? And during the speechifying, he was moving about, kind of moving around, holding that baby. And when the speeches were over, he said, it's been a long time since I held a baby. And that mom had 2, one in each arm.
She sure did.
And anyway, it was a funny day and a funny moment. And we're really excited about the changes to parental leave. But I'm excited about all of these changes. I have to tell you, it is the most significant thing that we've done in 60 years to modernize the act and just to get parental leave for state employees where it is out there in the world.
Yeah.
That was just sort of a great equalizer. So I'm really happy about it. The governor's very happy about it. And I think state employees are really going to benefit from that. And it goes into effect on October the 1st. That's kind of a big event. That's a big moment. And again, that isn't the only leave because we expanded vacation leave for employees with 0 to 5 years. And we're looking at our policy. So now there's a total of 120 hours,
That's great.
I don't know when it changed. I can't remember it changing.
It changed by 10 minutes.
At all. One time it changed by, I don't even remember in my
Linda
whole
Coleman was
career,
the director.
like when it really changed. But it's now 120. So at least we have even numbers. But we're looking at policies like upfront leave. When you start state government, you have to work a whole year before you earn a day of leave.
Right.
So having some flexibilities around that leave and having agencies understand this is a business need, I can do this or I can't do that, giving them the freedom to really use that as a benefit to new employees, I think is fantastic. So we're working out those policies right now. So I'm really excited about that. So stay tuned on new policies that are coming.
Well, we will. And this is some positivity amongst all of the things that are not positive, that state employees have experienced and retirees as well. But, low wages already and the lack of pay raises, not having a budget for a whole year. So
flexibility doesn't cost a lot.
Yeah.
And so when you can be flexible, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great when we can. I failed to mention bereavement leave, but now that's codified. It was an opt-in for council of state agencies, and now it's codified. So all of the agencies have bereavement leave, and we are looking at that. So we're excited about that process, and now it's codified.
Yeah. So I got questions as this was moving through the process about grievance processes.
Right.
Those protections that state employees have. Can you speak to how that was affected or not affected or,
Not really affected in the new rewrite. We made some tweaks, but not anything that was really impactful. I think what we have to do now, and, we're going to have input from stakeholders, from agencies, from you all, from everyone about having a grievance process that actually works.
Right.
There's no motivation to remove any protections or anything like that, but how do we do this better? because it's not working. I mean, one of the things that I noticed, and that is a change to the new act, is allowing a probationary period to be extended by 6 months if a manager is not sure, which I think is a powerful thing, because what I was seeing before is they would let employees go that they weren't sure about.
Yeah.
But now there's not to immediately have to just say, yeah, I can't take this chance. They're going to become permanent,
Right,
and
they
I
get
don't
them locked
know.
in in their
If I
mind.
had 6 more months, I might be able to figure it out, but I don't. So I'm just going to let the person go. And that's not the goal. You know, if employees can be developed and there's an opportunity for them to grow and to be that kind of employee the agency wants, that's what we're after. But we have to take a serious look at our discipline policy. We got to get help with that. And we are. We have not undertaken that yet. It will be coming, but there's going to be a lot of conversation and input around what makes that work and why does it not work.
Yeah.
But yeah, the focus wasn't really on that in this rewrite, or at least it wasn't my focus.
So you talked a little bit about working with SEANC. I know I've brought this up on a few episodes of when we talked about this act specifically. Sometimes people think that our job is to just stand on the podium and shout and argue with lawmakers about things. But there is an aspect of what Suzanne does is like working with agencies to get bills to a place we want them, right?
Right.
And that's a thing that people don't really see. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe working with Suzanne on that?
Oh, yeah. And let me just say right off the bat, this would not have happened without your support. And I am so grateful that every time we had a committee meeting, you were there. There was if you couldn't be there, you know, artists, you were there, or someone was there from SEANC in the room every time. And I think that is one of the key reasons why this bill passed unanimously. We didn't have a no vote in a single committee or on the full House
Well, that's
floor.
pretty amazing. No votes is a big deal.
I'm very grateful for that. But to answer your question, sorry, I digressed. But I want to say thank you, because I think that is the success of this, is working together. My success is based on your support, and it is one of those things that makes us able to do this work. And you can spend a lot of time disagreeing, but if I look at your job as being a voice for state employees. And I can't talk, I can talk to some state employees, but I can't talk to every state employee. And you hear things that I don't hear. But for you to be able to send me an email or call me or text me and say, I heard this, do you know anything about it? Having that kind of relationship strengthens the work that we're able to do at OSHL.
It does. And
It totally does.
Incredibly important for the legislature to see when we're working together, to make good things happen instead of just the constant bumping of noggins over issues.
And we've heard legislators say, has SEANC signed off on
Yeah.
this?
We get,
Every time.
always.
Every single meeting, I will go meet with a legislator. What does SEANC think?
Yeah.
So the good news is they're asking what you think,
Yeah,
right?
well, that's good.
Certainly
That's
better
some
than
good
not.
news. That means that you are effective and they know that it's important. What you're saying is important. And the next question to me is, have you talked to them? Like, of course I've talked to them. Yes.
We've had legislators say that we have signed off of it when maybe that's not the case. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you have to reel things back in, but
Yeah.
Well, you know how it goes down there
Yeah.
sometimes.
Well, like I said, I'm grateful to be able to work together to make changes that I think are impactful and support state employees. So that's the goal.
So one thing that happened this year, you and we were on the outside of, but you would understand it now, I think, much better than we do. We get a lot of questions, though. House Bill 171 that banned DEI practices in state government. Governor Stein vetoed it. Legislature overrode that veto. Since it ultimately goes to your agency to interpret and oversee, can you clarify exactly what it means for employees day to day? Because a lot of our employees just feel like we can't get a straight answer on what does it mean to not allow DEI. What is DEI in the eyes of the law,
Well,
that particular law?
I may be off, but I think the House overrode it, but the Senate has not.
Right.
And it's not, right now, it's not overridden. We're going to follow the law. like, I don't know exactly what it means and looks like.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I'm still looking for what
Yeah.
it means.
Yeah, and so I think that, there will be I'm going to have a number of meetings, and, I'd love for you to be part of those meetings, as if that happens and that bill is overridden, I mean, we're gonna need some clarification of what is it you're looking for here?
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking? And, there's some of this work we are required to do by law, but, the stress is that we're gonna follow the law. We're gonna do what the law says, but sometimes, you need clarification.
Well, the lines
Or
are
you
just
need
all
some
over the place. If you can do veteran spouses, how's that not taking a particular group and doing something special for them?
Right. And we have to look at our policies to make sure that they are doing what we need for them to do, that we are complying, and we have to draft them in such a way that they follow the law. So we are watching this whole situation very closely. And I can't tell you that I totally understand what the effort is. And I mean, there may be some misunderstanding about what's actually happening versus what's required to happen. So I think it's a work in progress. It hasn't happened. And until it does, I am furiously trying to get everything done by October 1.
You have a lot of complaints because it's been a long time since I worked in state government. But when I worked there, I just don't remember ever being told, hey, look, this is where we want you to focus and hire, or, anything like that. And do you have any complaints from folks about DEI because we haven't had any? Lawmakers were asking us when the bill was making its way through the process, and we're like, our phone hasn't rang one time over this.
We don't hear anything.
Okay.
I mean, we do what's required by law, and we do the training that we need to do, under state and federal law, but we don't ever have complaints about that work. So I really don't know. But I'm sure I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. Okay?
Yeah,
if that gets overridden.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like we're just one step away from everybody needing to understand. So it was a good time to ask.
Yeah, I think it's a great time to ask. And you know what? I have learned throughout this process of getting the rewrite done is that, I'm not afraid to ask. And it's not a secret. And if somebody has a motivation I don't see or understand, I want to know.
Right.
And so I just make an appointment and go ask those questions. And, I have gotten great information that way. Just say, like, help me understand this because I don't get that.
Right.
But
so I'm
afraid I have more questions.
So Artist broke the seal on the curveballs over there. Do you have anything else to say about the act before we maybe? I have one other curveball I want to ask you about. So do you have anything else about the act specifically, or?
No, I have a list of things that it does that, I think it's just helpful to have a list. I may have shared it with you. I'm not sure, but I'll make sure that I leave it with you. But I have to say that my team has worked so hard on this, and I am so grateful to them. It has been long hours, late nights. But, getting it over the finish line and the governor signing it into law, it was really at OSHR, it's really a great opportunity for us to do things differently than we've done them in the past. So we're sort of shifting our delivery of services and becoming more and more service oriented. So we have great opportunities that are coming, and there's a lot of work to do.
Yep.
And I'm thrilled about how far we are. But I think the real work was not at the legislature. It was work, and I'm grateful for everything that was done in the building. The legislators who sponsored it were so supportive. They helped get things done. The governor, tremendously supportive of my efforts. But I think that our real challenge is getting the policies right and implementing them to teach people a new way. One thing I'll say is that, we're changing the way we address our policies. In the past, it's just been focused on worst case scenarios or bring in proof of something. Or as we do this, we're really doing it from a respect aspect and from honoring state service and elevating public service and, really looking at it through a different lens. So I'm hoping that is what we are able to
state
accomplish.
Employees are the most risk-averse and change-averse people on the planet. Because
I love some change, though.
It's largely why people choose public service. It's it used to be pretty predictable. You knew that you would have good, decent pay, not great pay, decent pay and solid benefits. Now that's eroding over time. The benefits are nowhere near as solid, and we're experiencing the problems with that. But that's why people came in. They were tended to be risk-averse folks. So it'll be interesting to see with new policies how folks
Well,
do.
I think the pay is important. And I think that the benefits are important. And knowing, how I've benefited over time and other state employees feel about pay and benefits. But I think there's something else too. Something else about the work itself, the desire to be a public servant, the desire to have flexibility, for someone to understand work-life balance, the health of an organization. These are things that we've thought about over time, but we haven't put a lot of work into place to make sure that we look at the human aspect of it too. And I think that there's a lot of satisfaction around feeling good about the work that you do and having flexibilities that, if we can do that and it doesn't cost anything, we should be looking at all those kinds of things. And we want to do that. And as we look at these policies, that is the way we are approaching them, through respect and dignity and all of those kinds of things, as it is a focus on how we do this work.
I don't disagree, but at the end of the day, they've got to pay their bills. So,
yes, absolutely.
The main respect they want is to be paid what they're worth.
And we want that. And like I said, we are looking at our classification and compensation system to make sure that we are not doing things to agencies that limit employees and how much they can earn. And so all of those things need to be looked at very carefully. It's not just what the legislature can do. Are there things that we can do right now? We just raise the ranges, by a certain percentage, because you would hear from agencies, you can't go above this, you can't do this, or this causes compression, or you can't do that. But we want to look at everything anew to make sure that we don't have policies that are limiting. Right? We want to do all that we can so employees can be compensated as well as they can.
Yeah, I was at a Wake County Board of Commissioners meeting the other day, and a presentation was done on salaries in Wake County. The average salary in Wake County is apparently mid-$80,000. And I looked at that and thought, wow, with Wake County being the hub for state government, that's a pretty big lag behind where the average state employee salary is. And it's only when you see the private sector compared to the public sector and then see everything that has changed. We can no longer advertise to folks we want to be state employees, hey, you'll have health care when you retire, because they won't now, the newer ones. And then we can no longer advertise that the retirement system and the healthcare system will be as strong as they used to be. It used to be truly what they called a Cadillac plan healthcare. Mm-hmm. And it's, we're just not in that place anymore. So what do you think to bring young people in would be the number one most important thing we could focus on? Now, I'm throwing you a complete curveball. This isn't anything we talked about.
I will tell you that one thing that we haven't done in a very long time, I just don't even remember when it was done, but we just finished an employee viewpoint survey for all state employees. I don't know if you know about that. But
yeah, I knew you did it. Did you get a good response?
Well, I think it's about 20. I didn't bring the figures, but I think it's about 26%.
What? That's huge.
For a survey, it kind of is.
Yeah.
We are working on gathering results from that now. We don't have, we have some initial indicators of how many people responded. But I think that those are things that are important to know what it is that people want. Mm-hmm. And, I think best I can tell, people are proud of their work. They're proud of where they work for, who they work for. And, I feel good that we've taken that step. Now, the most important thing is we actually do something with that kind of thing. And we want to make sure, as we are evaluating the results when they come, is that we'll figure out what that is. But it's really all focused on elevating public service. And it's, it is a combination. And I think that I say this is looking at a newer generation of state employees. We want people who will stay. We want people who will see the value in the work that they're doing. And they want to do this work and they want to serve North Carolina. So we want to attract a very diverse workforce. I think that is, a real strength when you look at how many people can retire in the next 5 years. So, we have to look at things like burnout rates. We have to look at, again, job satisfaction, and we can't do it. Yes, I agree with the pay and the benefits. I absolutely agree that that is a big part of it. But I think things like maternal leave and leave flexibility and, career growth of when you're doing this performance management assessment or the work, now we call it managing work policy. Now, as your work is being managed and you are being looked at, you should see your path, your career growth path, and you can do this and you can do that. And I mean, I was so lucky in state government that I got to move around and do different things and see different things. And, I want to make sure that we are focused on developing our employees so they're not bored. And I do have a 23-year-old, and
you don't want her bored.
And you hear, oh yeah, well, I want to do that, and then I want to do this because I can't possibly do something for longer than 2 years. But I feel like every job should be fulfilling. Okay, and I've had jobs that were more fulfilling than others, but certainly there was something great, and I learned in every single job I had. So I want everyone to feel that way. What's that curveball?
Oh, so very quickly, I know you're very short on time, and these people over here are all going to groan when I ask this question.
Oh, God.
It's okay.
What is it?
AI. Go ahead and do your
he
groan.
loves AI.
AI.
Okay, so
it's there. It's alive.
Everyone's worried about losing their job to AI, and state employees probably aren't different. The Governor Stein is sign an executive order, pushing AI through state agencies, see how we can find efficiencies and things. What do you say to state employees who are maybe concerned?
I think AI is a tool, and OSHR has leaned in to figure out what is that tool that's going to help us. It's not going to replace us. It's going to enhance the work that we do, but I don't think there's going to be a situation where there is not human interaction. I don't see things getting turned over to AI. I think AI can do things faster than humans can in some regard, but there's never going to be that element where you don't have to have the discretion.
Yeah.
So how we work is going to change. And the sooner that we figure out how AI impacts us and embrace it and figure out how to do our work, I think that is a job that I have and OSHR has, is to help our workforce understand it and to help make it work for state employees versus replacing state employees with it. So I think it's a tool, and that's how I'm approaching it.
Okay, great.
Not a replacement.
So I'm still pursuing the AI episode of the podcast.
You can find somebody to come on.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thanks for that answer. And thanks for joining us too and coming. I know you got to go.
Absolutely. And listen, to have that kind of response rate on a survey means that the employees trust you. That's a big deal. So congratulations on that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for all that you've done to help us get in the, a lot's happened in a year and a half. And so we have lots of work to do. I know this. I'm serious about it, but we couldn't be where we are without the support. And I think that's critical.